Opening remarks. I am going to do an attendance roll call. So when I say your name, if you can just indicate that you are present. And then for any votes, we're recording now. We do have to do an audio roll call. So with that, I will state that the regular meeting of the East Lake Special Service District Advisory Board will now begin. Good afternoon. See, I'm using a little script here. Good afternoon. My name is Michael McLaughlin. I will be facilitating this meeting of the East Lake Special Service District Advisory Board. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. So when I state your name, if you could please indicate that you are present. Trent Kramer.
Present.
Nancy Ford.
Here.
Dan Kennedy.
Present.
Al Puter is not present. And I will also note David Bauer and myself are also participating. There being a quorum of the advisory board members present, we will proceed. The next item on the draft agenda is to adopt the agenda and the minutes. We can do them separately, or we can do them as one action item if desired. The draft agenda was distributed to the board and posted to the city's website, as were the draft minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt one or both of those items?
I move to adopt the draft agenda and to adopt our past minutes.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Good. If there's no discussion, I will call the roll. On the adoption of the agenda and approval of the minutes, Trent Kramer.
Aye.
Nancy Ford.
Aye.
Dan Kennedy.
Aye.
Al Puter, we will note as absent. Very good. The agenda and the minutes to the prior meeting are approved as distributed. Next is our public comment period. I will note that we have not been joined by any members of the public. However, they could dial in at some point throughout the meeting. So what we typically do is table that agenda item until, if there's no one at the beginning of the meeting, we can table it to the end of the agenda should someone join us during the meeting and like to address the board. There's no objection to that. We'll move on to our discussion items. The first discussion item is the recap of the 2020 annual report. And I will share my screen here in just a moment, just to walk through this fairly quickly. All right, let me do that. There we go. All right, so this was, we emailed this to the advisory board several weeks ago. This has also gone to council and was received and filed several weeks ago. We followed the format that we started last year in terms of, the idea here is it's an annual report. We're capturing in summary format the work that the district accomplished last year. So we kind of start with an overview, list the advisory board members. I will note that we do have one open seat of the 5-member board. So if you know of someone that would be interested, we'd be happy to connect with them and start the application process. We describe the role of the advisory board in recommending, the services, the level of the services, the annual operating plan and budget, service charge methodology, as well as be an additional point of contact for any business and property owners if they have questions or comments about the work of the district. Page 2, and I'll zoom in here a little bit, is where we really try to, at a high level, describe the services that the district provided in the prior year. So obviously the trash receptacle servicing is a particular item, and I will note that we did remove an estimated 20,578 cubic feet of trash from the district via those services to empty those trash receptacles, those 49 receptacles that are located throughout the district. There was some supplemental work that the district provided in concert with other divisions within the city, as well as the public, related to the civil unrest last year. So we noted that. In terms of streetscape maintenance, your pan and broom services, as recommended by the board, we did that 14 times, May through October. essentially twice a month, resulting in 1 cubic foot less than 600 cubic feet of trash that was removed as part of those services. And we'll note that we did remove just under 1,000 instances of graffiti from public right-of-way, fixtures, and other items in the public right-of-way. We also did, as needed, any decorative fencing and retaining wall repairs throughout the district in terms of those areas that are maintained by the district. And there were some trash liners and lids that we had to purchase and replace following the civil unrest last year. So that was all part of the work of the district. Moving on to the landscape maintenance, we did any young trees. We continue to have apply 15 gallons of water to those at least once a week over the course of the growing season. So last year we had just about 22 trees that we did that. Again, we typically do that only to the very small trees, young trees, to try to get them as well established as possible. We did also mulch under, lift all the tree grates where we have tree grates, clean out the mulch and replace with new mulch. That was done in June. We also replaced all the mulch in your planting beds mid last summer as well. I will move on. Again, this was meant to just be a high level. Kind of there. Here's your year-end financial report. Again, this was also previously distributed to the board. Your budget as amended was $74,794. As you can see, we on the sources and uses side, we did actually spend $75,223. So there was a deficit of $429 at year end last year. As has been typically the practice for most districts, that is will be applied to your 2022 service charges. And you'll see those in just a moment when we talk about your 22 budget recommendation and the draft that we put together. So, no need to recover that here in 2021. We can essentially add it to 2022 and the amount that's imposed on all the properties. And then the final item, and we can happy to go into any detail here. Trash receptacle servicing. We hit just about on budget. Streetscape maintenance was more in part because we did more paint and brooms. The landscape maintenance was a little less than originally budgeted. So just to kind of highlight where we were over and under. And then the final item here was just the map of the district, just so everybody has a sense of where services are provided. And the little, sorry, mouse is going crazy. The little green areas are the planting beds that the district maintains. So those are also represented on this map. Any questions on 2020 annual report before we move on to 2021?
We've paid an awful lot of attention to the buildings that were damaged, but I'm wondering what in the streetscape was damaged. I saw a reference to some trash can lids, I think it was. But anything else?
My sense is, and David will add to this, there were definitely lids that went missing. In some cases, liners went missing. We presume it was, there were obviously there was a groundswell of public support in the corridor. So what we suspect happened is people would go out, grab the liners. They're essentially like group containers that were in the trash receptacles, maybe brought them to a location in order to clean something, and then somebody picked them up, perhaps another city crew. So in some cases, we had to replace those liners. We also, due to some damage, we're going to be doing an inventory. We lost at least a couple of trash receptacles, the decorative trash receptacles, and that's actually one of the items we wanted to talk to the board about here in terms of your 2021 work plan. If that's, we've got a couple different options for replacing those. And then I don't know that it was related to the civil unrest, but I think we had some other fencing sections that just got damaged, hit by vehicles. Is that right, David? And I'll let you expand on those comments.
Yeah, I put in a work order for that column kind of by TCF Bank, McDonald's there for repair there. Around the 27th in Lake Block, we had some tree grates that got kind of messed up with the fires and the removal of those buildings. So we'll see how that shakes out with the redevelopment there, and that could be part of those repairs can be made, and that the replacement of those tree grates and the repair of the sidewalk should be part of that development project when that happens. I think we lost 2 trash receptacles to fires, so that's something that we can talk about how we want to deal with that today. And then there was one fire at near Target in their parking lot where some fence paint was damaged, but that's what I found by my observations of the district over the last year.
When we pay for trash receptacle emptying, is that per receptacle?
Yes. Yeah, per receptacle per time it's serviced. That's
Right.
a set fee. Any other questions on 2020? Otherwise, it's a good segue to 2021. We're ready to move on. To be clear, no action required on the 2020 annual report. We wanted to just spend a couple minutes going through it. So shifting gears to 2021, I have your budget up on the screen. Again, this was the budget that was recommended a year ago by the advisory board. We'll note that because there was a deficit, we did not need to amend or adjust your 2021 budget because, again, we'll apply that $429 deficit from year end last year to the 2022 service charges. So your budget is still $74,000. We had adjusted the line items a little bit from 2020 to 2021 to try to more accurately reflect where we were spending dollars. So I guess we do have approximately $1,500 in the budget, although we could spend more on any streetscape repairs. So one question we had regarding those missing trash receptacles. So one option is we can purchase new receptacles that match your existing new receptacles to replace the ones that are no longer there or are damaged. There also is at least one that is out there that really should be replaced by Target. There's the sort of the bare remains of a trash receptacle in front of Target that is a good candidate to potentially be replaced. So we can buy new fixtures subject to sort of the budget conversation here. The other option we have on an interim, and this has already been done to some extent, is we can put out those city issued aggregate containers as an interim measure. So at least that there is a trash receptacle still in that location. So that's another option we have. A third option would be to work with solid waste to put out those sort of large plastic trash receptacles that you see throughout the district or throughout the city. Those are often at bus stops if there isn't already a trash receptacle. So there are ways that we can get a receptacle out there in a location where we need it. And this is where we, really, I guess, wanted to ask the board what your preference was in terms of purchasing some new receptacles. Do you want to do that this year? Do you want to wait till next year? Or what are your thoughts?
What's the cost per receptacle again?
Yeah, it's about $1,500 installed. So that's shipped and installed per receptacle.
So you're like, that's times 3, right?
Correct. potentially up to 3 or more. I should also note here that in addition to ones that are just missing, that there are still some what I'll call the legacy receptacles. So these are the aluminum receptacles that were put in back in 2008, that the district over the years has sort of, as the budget has allowed, has replaced with a more robust fixture style. So there were, approximately 10 of those that were remaining to be replaced. Now, some of those may be the ones that got damaged. So we may be that 10 number may be inclusive of some of these other ones.
But and you still have some of the aggregate, the square ones that are covered with pebbles, right?
Correct. Yep.
What would be and what's the charge for those?
There's no charge to put them out. It's the district would just take over servicing them, and the cost to service one of those is the exact same price as it is to service a decorative one.
I like the no cost part of that. The contract. So one of the things I'm kind of curious about for the contractors when they're sending people out to manual pan and broom folk.
Mm-hmm.
Do they ever give you an estimate for how long that takes? I'm guessing parts of the city, parts of Minnehaha or parts of Lake Street might be worse than other parts. Mm-hmm. Where, what am I trying to say? Where those would be areas where it's indicated that you probably need another trash can, either on one side of the street or the other. Do you ever get any of that kind of feedback from the contractor?
We do. Your pan and broom, we do set that is set in the contract at a set price at the time of bidding to pan and broom the whole district. But we certainly are talking to your contractor regularly. I mean, if not daily, just about daily. And we have a built-in check-in, all Andy, David, and I with the contractor at least once a week. So we're in very close communication, and that is part of the conversation we have. Is there an area that we need to think about adding trash receptacles and things like that? So yes. In terms of have we gotten time estimates? Yes. I can't convey them off the top of my tongue, if you will, but it's certainly information that we have. I mean, I know, having walked the district as many times as I have, just walking the district is half a day. If you're, especially if you're doing something and not just like speed walking the district. So there is just sort of that built-in time of just physically getting through the district. And we have in the past, sorry, just to add, we have looked in the past, we've done utilization studies on the trash receptacles. Like, are there some that are less utilized that we could think about relocating and stuff like that? We haven't done one of those in a few years, but that's another strategy we've taken to try to, I sense where your question was going was align services with where they're needed in terms of demand.
Yeah. I just kind of have gotten into habitually cleaning the street myself. I just bought a bunch of garbage pickers and made some more litter bags, and I'm probably 2-3 times a week I'll walk from maybe 29th to 37th or 38th and walk both sides of the street. And occasionally I bump into the guys picking up trash and stop and talk to them, but it's I just started doing this in like the last few months, so I can't compare it to what it was like last summer. But it seems like there are chunks of it, not just around my store, but that are, I don't know if it's because there's less street traffic, because there's fewer restaurants open. I'm not really sure what it is, but it seems like there's areas where there seems to be less litter, flying around the street.
I'll also note that some corners have 3 trash receptacles on them. There's some intersections. Mine has 1. And maybe we can, if we need one somewhere else, maybe we can take one away from an intersection that has 3 of them. Clearly, we need 1 on each side of Lake Street if we're going to have 2. But the third one might be one that could be better utilized somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a good thing to think about. I know that I think my corner at 33rd, they're diagonal on opposite sides of the street, kitty corner from each other.
Mhm.
And I think that might be the same way at 36th. I'm not sure, but yeah, thinking about that and seeing where they're located and maybe moving some around, and also thinking about restaurants that are there and now not there, since there's no restaurant on the corner of 36th anymore, that might be reducing the amount of trash. And I'm guessing that with the opening of what used to be Arby's, which is supposed to be Raising Cane, I'm going to guess that's going to have an impact on litter on that corner, as does the McDonald's definitely does.
Can I ask a question? Is there information on how many intersections, as Dan described, have three trash receptacles? Or just
Couldn't
something?
hear the question. Could you say it again?
Dan mentioned three receptacles on the corner and perhaps moving on. I'm wondering if there are other intersections with that same configuration, whether it's three, more than two anyway, one intersection.
I've noticed it mostly going east from my corner, which is 34th, toward the river. I know that there are at least two or three that have three receptacles.
Yeah. If you,
Are they? Is it a demand thing? Are they getting full, or is it something
yeah.
else?
So a couple things. There was an original layout that was done, that the county just based on their analysis and their design team when the project was planned, where they put things. And then subsequent to that, in the district's own utilization studies, we did shift some locations. So, again, based if we were seeing a receptacle that was consistently only being, was only full, was only 25% full when we would go to empty it on average, then we would move that to a new location. So we have done some shifting ourselves over the years. So let's see if I can. I'm going to share my screen, a different screen here. If you give me a second, I do have a map of the, not sure, this might not be, I think this is accurate. This is not necessarily post, sorry, I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this is a blow up. So these little circles, these are your trash receptacle locations. And this is, again, there's probably this doesn't reflect anything that went missing or was damaged following the civil unrest or has been hit by a vehicle. But so like here's down at 33rd, this is an example where Dan was describing where utilization has suggested that 3 at this corner makes sense.
Oh yeah, I forgot that there's one in front of Soderbergh's.
And then, but you can kind of see the pattern here. So here's again diagonal here at 32nd, kind of moving down here to 36th. And some of these are because they're they're higher traffic or they're bus, there's bus transit service on the cross street in some of these locations. And then, you can kind of see like down here, a little further to the east, there's more of a diagonal pattern at a couple of these intersections. So, so that kind of just gives you an idea of where these are located, at least historically. And again, like this A1, which is an aggregate container, is actually around the corner here on 31st by the post office, where the site of the former post office. So, so we can, I guess one thing, if we were going to move things around, something we typically would suggest is that we do another utilization study. And that is literally, we ask the vendor for a month, or this is what we've done in the past, as they go and service the receptacle, meaning empty it, we ask them to note how full it is. And then we aggregate that data over the course of a month's worth of servicings. And then we can sort of really get a much better sense of, hey, that's a candidate for relocating to somewhere else. Or, boy, I wouldn't have thought that one was so busy, but it sure looks like we need to keep it there. And maybe there's a good reason to have 3 at a corner because they're all, so utilized. But that is certainly something we could, there's a little bit of a cost. It's not much, just because there's a little bit more time involved in the vendor keeping track of that and reporting out to us. But it's certainly been well worth the cost in the past. And actually, just because I have it, the beauty of being at our desks, let me see if I can find it fast enough. I want to find one of our most recent utilization studies, just so you get a sense of how it kind of how we have done this. I think of where. So if this doesn't light up YouTube, me looking in my folders for a file, I don't know what will.
While you're looking for that, I can also see that we have receptacles in front of Arby's and in front of the tobacco store that was next to Minnehaha Lake Liquors, both of which will probably be construction sites. I know Minnehaha Lake Liquors will be.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be a good location because they'll probably seal off that sidewalk anyway as part of their construction. So the receptacle, could take it from there and then worry about replacing it after the construction's done.
Certainly all of those are, and I think David was kind of mentioning that they're typically, when we see redevelopment, they will go out to the curb line, just in kind of, not always, replace the trees and the sidewalks and things, just to fully be able to develop their sites. So, so that is certainly something we could do. And David actually just recently completed an inventory of sites that were along Lake Street that are, in some state or some point in the timeline of being redeveloped because of damage from everything that happened last year. So I apologize, I am not able to find this utilization study as quickly as I had hoped. I'm guessing it's in one of these budget folders, which would mean I would have to really dive into these things. So, but I was just going to give you a sense. We basically plotted out on in a spreadsheet, and it kind of like a mini map format, but sort of data visualization to be able to really show what the utilization is through that. So is that something the group would like to do? We could do that, say, for the month of May, and then evaluate it and just move any that makes sense based on that in early June.
What does it cost?
It's negligible. Maybe total added time is maybe a couple $100 to do it. It's very minimal. And I'm probably,
I'm in favor of it.
to be clear.
It sounds like a good idea, and this seems to be a good time of year to do it.
Okay, well, we will do that. And again, I apologize that we're not able to find this.
Something else I just thought of, and that is, something else that might have had a pretty big impact on how much trash has been collected along Lake Street is whether school is in session for teenagers or not. I completely spaced that until just now.
Well, and just to add to that, one of the things we certainly have done over the course of the last year since the pandemic, in working with the SSC contractor, is evaluating, can we dial service back? We have some districts that provide 7-day-a-week trash receptacle servicing, typically just because of their pedestrian volumes, their footfalls, and certainly as the pandemic, sort of hit and was, really having an impact on commercial districts, we were responding in real time, like, okay, let's dial that back to 3 times a week or 4 times a week if we needed to. It wasn't just, oh, the service is on and we're going to do it even if it isn't being utilized. We were definitely doing that. I don't recall that we made any changes in your district, in part just because of the frequency that we're doing the services. That it really didn't lend itself to making any adjustments, because we're doing it twice a week year round, and that really seemed to be a good. We weren't seeing that there were empty containers out there, so that's why we stuck with the twice a week service. All right, so we will go ahead and complete a utilization study in May. And then we'll evaluate, is there, should we place some aggregate containers out where we know that there are some missing? Do you want to do that, or do you want to wait till the results of the utilization study?
I would rather wait. They just don't have the same class as the ones that we have. I think it brings us down, and working with the people at 27th and Lake, we want to try to avoid that intersection looking like it's being abandoned somehow. So putting cheap containers out there, I think, might have that effect.
Okay. Is that consensus, Nancy and Trent?
I think it's better to have, personally, having a receptacle there for people that are waiting for the buses, because that's a really, really busy bus stop. If that's a spot where one's missing, I think anything is better than not having something there. And I don't think, I'm not sure if it really sends a message. I think that we've kind of abandoned it. It has more to do with, if you don't have a receptacle there at all, is like, well, does that mean that they don't care? I'm not sure, but having something, it probably costs less in time to empty a trash can than it does to have people hand pick litter off the street. And also, the more litter that's in the street, the more likely it goes into the storm drains, and the more likely it goes into, the creek or the river. So anything to keep it from doing that is probably good for now, and free is better than $1,500.
I'm thinking the issue is more not whether we have one, but what kind do we have and where do we get it? Since we're only missing 1 or 2.
Yeah. So there is one at. There is one at Target, if that's what we were talking about. The one that I know is missing is by the precinct, but there's the barricades there, so I think they just elected to remove that off the street so they could, fortify that corner.
Yeah, that's a busy bus stop too.
Yeah.
So people coming from Target and the grocery store heading east on Lake Street are constantly waiting there, and there's barely any room. There's probably not room for a trash receptacle, and there's not room for a bus bench either.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take a look and kind of keep an eye on that intersection and how people are using it right by the precinct. And if there is an opportunity to add something back there, then we can definitely try to do that. If it's just an aggregate to start with, I know that there seems to be a neighborhood.
Is it possible to?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I noticed there seems to be a neighborhood group or some group that is doing some mosaic tiling on some of these aggregate containers. I know the one that is by where the post office used to exist, and then up along Minnehaha on each side of the street, there are aggregate containers there that have kind of been spruced up and decorated with some tiling. So, and they look pretty nice. So maybe we can get in touch with that group and tell them we're going to add new ones here and here, and if there's an interest to do that same kind of tiling to fit in with everything else that's out there, maybe there's an opportunity.
That was done with a grant, and it
Okay.
was done by Mosaic on a Stick. So that's who did it. But I mean, that's not what I was going to bring up, as long as you did. if there was grant money for that, it'd be great. I don't know that we have money to do that. My question though is it possible to move one or two of these needed cans from construction zone sites right now in time to be there for the utilization study?
Yes. Yeah, we can effectuate that within really a week. It's just a matter of scheduling it with the contractor. So we can definitely do that. So I'm sort of wondering why don't we do two things? We'll go through and do another inventory based on this map and make sure it's accurate. So we'll ground truth this map. We'll note which ones are missing and are damaged, and which ones beyond the two we know of that are aggregate. So the two I at least on this map that were aggregate was the one down by the former post office, and then there was one over here on 44th on the south side. So those were the two that we knew of. And then, so I think we do that to the suggestion. And as we've talked about, it makes a lot of sense if we, especially if we know there's going to be construction, particularly starting this year on a site, we'll go ahead and there's a decorative red receptacle. We'll go ahead and relocate those to where we're missing some. Are there, in terms of budget priority, do you want to buy any new receptacles this year? And I ask in part because there's, it's about an 8-week lead time to get them ordered and on site and installed, 8 to 10 weeks.
Seems like a difficult question to answer without knowing the utilization.
Well, I mean, I would say this though. I mean, if we are missing some, we knew that we knew from the prior utilization studies that there were not too many trash receptacles. If anything, there were too few, just based on, the utilization and, that we moved some around. So you are, for essentially a decade, you were at these 49 containers. You are not at 49 containers today. Now, there are some locations where due to construction, we can relocate some, but that's probably only a couple locations is my sense. In addition to any that are missing, there are still the question of do you want to continue the replacement of the original style receptacle with the new style? So, and again, you don't have to. I'm just trying to get a sense of if this is something we should add to the purchase list for this year based on the group's recommendation. And you, to be clear, you are budgeting to service 49 trash receptacles twice a week. So adding receptacles is not going to increase your cost beyond what you budgeted, other than the cost of the fixture to buy it and install it.
Do we know how many below 49 we're currently at?
I think the best guess is 2 to 3 of missing receptacles. Does that sound accurate, David?
Yes. I think we're 3 down at this point.
I'm counting 47 on the map.
Plus the aggregate ones. Yeah.
There are 2 aggregates. And this map is not showing which ones are missing. This is the original locations prior to everything. So
Right.
this is from July 2019. So this is not reflecting anything that happened last year. So one of the things we will do is ground truth this map and update it. But we know from our own field inspections that we're down at least 2 or 3 from the original 49.
Can we have this discussion again after the contractors, spend some time doing another assessment during the month of May?
We probably won't be able to convene the board at the soonest until August. So just because we have all the other groups that we're meeting with. So I just need to manage expectations that until we're done with the budget cycle of meeting with all the boards at least once, we're not going to be able to convene any boards a second time. But yes, we could meet later in the year.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe this was a conversation that we could have and decide, whether we should spend the money or not, without having a meeting to discuss that. But it sounds like you can't.
Open meeting law requirements are that any decisions by the board have to be done in a notice meeting. We're not able to do anything via email or electronically in between meetings.
There you go.
Do we know, do we know how many cans might have been purchased in the last year?
How many cans would have been purchased when? I didn't hear the last part of that, Trent.
Last budget year.
So last year we had a deficit from the prior year. So we didn't buy any in 2020 either. We did in 2019. We purchased, in a second, because I was just looking at this. We purchased 10 in 2019. So the deployment has been, we replaced 9 in 2016, 10 in 2017, 10 in 2018, 10 in 2019, 0 in 2020. And we didn't budget to replace any automatically this year. Meaning in your 21 budget, what we've been doing, some of those were purchased, as you'll recall, with a Great Streets Business District Support Grant we partnered with the Longfellow Community Council to apply for those funds. The Great Streets has said they won't give a grant to the district to buy any more receptacles. Now that could be different now because of what's happened, right? So maybe that was pre-pandemic and pre-civil unrest. So maybe there's an opportunity in the next grant cycle to work with the neighborhood association again and try to apply for those funds. Again, I can't guarantee. I'm just saying circumstances have changed, and maybe that would be compelling to CPED. So where it was basically from the original position was until since the grant has been applied for several years, that the district would have to buy the remaining fixtures on its own. So at that point, there were 9. Prior to losing any last year, there were 9 original receptacles that still had to be replaced. And again, some of those 9, maybe some that were damaged as part of it, everything that happened last year, or they may not have been. So I don't have line of sight on that as we sit here. And I'll note that we've been joined by Al Pewter. Al, good to see you. So yes, we can. You don't need to make a decision today on this. We can continue to service what's out there. We can do the utilization study in May, and we can table this any decision until a future meeting that would hopefully occur later this year. That would be fine. The one thing we would, if there are some high traffic locations, we might just need to deploy a trash receptacle. And I think Nancy, you kind of alluded to it earlier. If we have no receptacle in an area, particularly if it's by a bus stop, we really need a receptacle, because you're just creating another problem for yourself, because people are just going to throw that trash on the streets. So if you're okay with it, I think we've heard the board that your preference is to wait if you can. But if we get out there, once we ground truth this map and really identifies 1 or 2 locations where we do need to put a receptacle, we'll do that. Based on this conversation, my sense is we would relocate from a known likely construction site first before we would put out an aggregate one. How does that sound?
That sounds good. On that issue of the grants, it was the Longfellow Business Association that got the grants from the Great Streets program.
Thank you, Dan. Yes.
And the last time that we got it, the Great Streets program said, this is the last one. The Special Services District should be paying for the rest of them. I don't know whether the climate has changed and we could go back and say, well, we never did do that. Could you give us some more money? I kind of doubt it.
Well,
Unless
so
that
Great Great Streets promotes, they want to see more public transportation, more pedestrians and more bicyclists, correct? Get people out of their cars. Is that kind of what their platform is?
Not necessarily. It's to fortify the business districts in the city. So it could be, we get money for storefront revitalization and for bike racks and just a variety of things that make it a better business climate.
Then how come they're drawing the line at trash receptacles?
Well, they didn't draw the line. They paid for them for years.
Okay, but they're saying they don't want to pay for them anymore.
Well,
Right.
let me be clear, just to build on Dan's comments, because they had funded it like 3 years in a row, that was where I think they said, okay, we helped you enough at that point, is my sense. Al, is that you dialing in? Someone else just joined us. Hello?
Yeah, Al Cooter.
Hey, Al.
So Al, you dialed in as well?
Yeah,
Very good. Just making sure. You know, part of me, and I don't know this, but given everything that has changed on Lake Street since that statement by the Great Streets was made by that program, it seems to me there could be a compelling case for applying again, especially the fact that you lost some of your containers due to the civil unrest. I can't speak for them. The answer may be the same. Now, part of it would be if it's the Longfellow Business Association again, you know, they would need to agree, concur, and prioritize asking for Great Streets money to include trash receptacles. They might be applying for other, you know, for other uses for those funds as well. And honestly, I think the last cycle that I remember, wasn't there an August deadline of last year? David, do you remember when the deadline was? And when I don't think we've heard if there when the deadline.
Yeah, it might be different for this next cycle, but typically they'll open it up in late February and then have an August deadline from what I remember. So
Yeah, my recollection is that the LBA put in a request in about October of 2020
okay.
and received a grant, but it didn't include trash receptacles.
Okay. Yeah, I like Michael said, I think, you know, circumstances in your district have changed. There's with the civil unrest and all that kind of activity going on, right, you know, in your district, maybe their tone has changed on not funding this anymore. So it might be worth applying again and seeing what they say.
We could certainly note the ones that have been lost to the incidents in May. Say, well, we have 4 or 5, and so please help us with those.
For sure. Yeah. And I have an inventory that I went out after all the civil unrest last year and put together a list of all the damages. So including the trash receptacles and there's a couple that had fires in them. So I got pictures of all that stuff. So.
Okay, well, so just to summarize, we're going to ground tooth and update the our map. If we determine that there are any high demand or high need locations, we may relocate some existing ones. Again, we'll prioritize the ones that are in known construction areas or at least likely construction sites. If not, we may have to put out an aggregate 1 or 2 if there aren't enough of those to sort of relocate. We will do the utilization study in May. We will summarize that and report that out at the next meeting, date to be determined, but hopefully sometime yet, maybe late summer of this year. And then in the meantime, we wouldn't be lead on it, but Dan and others that are involved in the business association, depending on the timing of the Great Streets grant, the next Great Street grant cycle, and if there's an interest, perhaps that group could be a potential partner to think about applying for funds for as Dan said, maybe even just the replacement of the ones that were damaged during the civil unrest. So how does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Let me stop sharing this screen and reshare my budget screen. See, now I got too many screens open. There we go. Back to the 2021 budget. Anything? So one question I had for the group related to this year, we did mulch all of the planting beds last year. We did budget to do that annually. We can, so we could do it again. We used a natural mulch, meaning not a dyed mulch, which tends to fade, kind of fades to that gray color, natural gray color, a little faster than dyed mulch. So it is, and it kind of, I guess I could have mentioned this a few minutes ago, I apologize, but it is, to replace the mulch is a higher ticket item. If we were to replace it all, we also can top dress the existing mulch at a lower cost, although I don't have a fixed estimate that I can give you. Or we can forego the mulch and, sort of bank the money, subject to, you could use that to, we could decide later at the summer, in the late summer meeting, to buy trash receptacles with those dollars. You guys have a sense from looking at your planting beds today, if you for sure want to mulch again for the original budget plan, or if you want to wait? So part of this is an aesthetic question.
The
I think
mulcher
I
at
would.
my store between 31st and 36th looks like it's pretty good. I mean, aesthetically, number one, there seems like there's enough of it, and number two, aesthetically, I'm fine with however it looks. If it looks natural versus dyed, I'd prefer to save the money.
I agree with that.
I agree also.
So we will not do that this year. To give you a sense of the dollars, that's about $10,000 in the budget by not spending that this year. In a minute, we're going to talk about your 22 budget. We likely will need to redo it next year. What we have found anecdotally is we can spend a little bit more on better quality dyed mulch, and aesthetically we can get more seasons out of it. So I mentioned that we might want to take a different approach going forward in terms of what we're doing there. So, all right. So thank you for the. Is that Al? Any concerns with waiting on the mulch?
No,
Okay.
I think we should get more trash receptacles. The other thing is, I think we should try and buy a trash receptacle from Uline. They look pretty much identical to the ones we're buying now, except they're less than half the price, but they're black. And of course, after they put a fire in them, they're going to be black anyway. So I think it'd be worthwhile buying one just to see what it's like.
We could certainly look into that. You'd be sort of just as draw attention to, you'd be undermining the investment to some degree that you've already put out there to have that consistent trash receptacle in the red color that you have. I mean, you can give us that guidance. I want to be clear.
You probably pay to have them painted the same color and come out a lot less.
What are the other?
You mean take a black one from Uline and paint it maroon?
Paint it maroon.
I'd be concerned about chipping paint and the life expectancy for that that added layer of paint.
I would just say from our experience, we actually tried to repaint your original receptacles that with the cast aluminum ones that failed so quickly. And even when you do a lot of prep on them, it's exactly what Nancy just described. The paint just doesn't hold up. The fixture we spec has a powder coated steel finish on it, and that's why it has lasted as long as it does, or lasts as long as it does. So, Al, I certainly appreciate your comment, but I would tell you from our experience, it is you get what you pay for when it comes to trash receptacles. So,
Not necessarily. We didn't get what we paid for in the first round.
No challenge there at all. Well, and this is interesting. So I'm looking at the Uline website. The one that looks like ours, the unit price is very similar to what we're paying now. This is $885. So part of when I say
I
$1,500,
thought we were paying over 1,000.
we are, but that's shipped and installed. So that's like an all in. So so our unit cost, yeah, right, David? Aren't these like $900?
I mean, it depends on how many we buy at one time. We do get like a volume discount if we batch an order, but yeah, 1,100, $1,200, something like that. Usually less than 1,200.
So I'm aiming, I should be clear. When I say 1,500, I'm giving you an average, and it's a little high just to give you a full sense. So when that actually lands, but in some cases we have been able to, the cost ends up being, because like the install is on a time and materials basis. So if we're doing a number of them and we're able to order them in sort of a quantity, and especially if we're able to batch with other districts, if it ends up costing less, that's all you pay, the whatever it actually costs, that lower price. It isn't just an automatic 1,500 that we charge you. So I'm just giving you a ballpark. So,
By the way, Uline shipping is free. I think over $800, so there would be no charge for shipping.
fair point. Anybody else want to weigh?
Uline one's coming green also.
Which ones are we looking at here?
Are you guys looking at the courtyard or the plaza? I was looking at the plaza. I'm on their website too.
I'm looking at the courtyard.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. What do you guys think?
Well, I still like the red ones, but it's tempting to save money.
Yeah, I like the red ones too. I mean, the cost difference. I don't know, where do the other ones come from? What do we pay for shipping for those?
Yeah, so the one we buy is the Dumore is the manufacturer. Let me see if I can pull it up here fast enough and share my screen, or David, if you're already on it.
Yeah, I got one here. Oh, well, this is an invoice. I don't know if I have a photo of. I'll try to find a picture quick.
I've got it.
You got it? We want to look at the invoice?
Just hang on.
I want to go to the trash can store and just
She's riveting.
knock them over and see which ones are the best ones.
Yeah, the plaza does look a lot like.
Something.
Let's just.
David, is it 157? Is that the one we buy?
So it's item 158-32 There is a state discount that we utilize to save a little bit more money to buying the style that we're going with, the maroon tulip design from Dumore.
What's the name of the company? Dumar?
Yeah, Dumore, DUMOR.com.
Yep.
You can go to their website and you can. We use Receptacle #1. They have a whole complement of street furniture, and it's Receptacle 158.
Is that the Streetscape 35.5 gallon outdoor receptacle? $775. Wait, you said receptacle 158?
158, yeah. So they have you can't buy from them directly. They have a distribution network. So there's a local metro company that is it's that flagship recreation that is their distributor that we buy stuff through. And as David said, we are able to purchase those and get them at somewhat of a discount through the state contract. So, so if you're ever looking for a government doesn't work well together, this is an example of literally the city of Minneapolis, like all cities in the state, are able to utilize an existing state contract with a vendor to get discounted pricing, and we're able to take advantage of that. So, and I'm not even a city employee. Point of pride. All right. Well, so we've had a little bit more conversation here. What you guys want to order more? Do you want to wait till the utilization till the next meeting? Any changing in thoughts on what to do on these?
How much again? Are we saving on-
So I'm not the person to ask.
how much again are we saving on the mulch this year?
$8,000
All right.
in terms of what was budgeted. I misspoke. I said
Right.
10. It's actually 8. 10 is our actual cost when we do the removals, but that would be essentially to replace everything would be 8,000. So, and you had budgeted for that in your current budget. So that's 8,000 you could put towards trash receptacles if desired.
So we could get 2 of them, depending on how important it is for everything to be matchy match. And we're gonna have to start cycling trash cans in and out as they get older and replacing them. So in the long run, it might make sense to get, maybe buy 2 of them at this point instead of going with the pebbly ones. Because it sounds like that was part of the discussion, is we want something that looks nice and blends in with everything else that we have. There's definitely a need for them. If we defer the mulching issue, we'll have some money to spare to throw at the receptacles. So thinking through that makes sense to me, to maybe set aside enough money for 2 new receptacles, and then we'll still have money left over. What do people think about the logic behind that?
I agree, but I'd go bigger. I would buy 5, thinking that we have to replace 10. Buy 5, which is less than we're saving on the mulch, and so it doesn't cost us more this year. Next year or end of next summer, we try to get onto an LBA grant for the other 5. If we don't do that, then we wait a year, and then next time we're saving on the mulch, we buy the rest.
I'll split the difference with you and go with 5.
Okay.
I think that's a sound decision. I really do. And I honestly, I think you might be making your case to Great Streets more compelling if you said, look, we lost some in the civil unrest. We have 5 left to buy to replace all of the original ones. Can you help us out with those? And then we're done. I think that might be compelling. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Does any other part of the city use the same trash cans that we do?
Yes.
Same color and same shape?
Yep. the Bloomington Lake, Chicago Lake, and Lynn Lake, all, that was the same, well, that red color is the spec ones. Chicago Lake and Bloom Lake and Lynn Lake have all replaced all of their original receptacles that were put out in the 2008 reconstruction, and they have all replaced them with this Do More fixture that we've been talking about. So they, like, Lynn Lake bought them all in 1 year because they had a big budget surplus, because we had less snow 1 year, so they were able to buy them all. Chicago and Bloom Lake bought them so many a year, just like you guys did, because it's a big money for the budget. So, and then what we do in other districts is they don't have the red, we go with black. And then if they have a one sort recycling, that's a recycling blue. So you'll see those in Uptown and a number over on campus. We have a number of districts that it's the same fixture, it's just in a different color with a different lid and labels that indicate it's recycled.
And another question I have about this, and I won't take up any more time, I'll just stop it. Are there, I know that there's multiple pieces to each of these trash cans. Are pieces of them salvageable when you get rid of them? Can you say, hey, you know, the outside, the exterior piece usually winds up looking like crap. That's where the paint usually chips and everything. But the liners of the lids or anything like that, is it possible to buy components for these trash cans instead of the full trash can?
We can buy the lids, and we did last year, for example, when they go missing. They do have a lanyard on them that we replace periodically to try to keep people from walking away from it. But you know, if someone really wants it, they're gonna take it. The rest of the fixture, so the liner, so the Brute brand container that we use that's inside of it, that is certainly interchangeable. And Al, we do often buy those from Uline, so please know we do take advantage of Uline where we can, because they're fast. I mean, sometimes it feels like they know you're going to order it and they have it in already being sent to you before you even think you're going to order it, because it arrives so fast. But so the lids and the liners are interchangeable. The rest of the container really, it's an integral piece, and it's all welded together. The base sometimes can, the very, very bottom of it can sometimes be interchanged. I mean, David, you've assembled a lot of these. Is that accurate? I pause here and have you answer the question.
No, that's accurate.
Okay.
And I think part of the reason that we do like to go with this model is it's tough to graffiti with those the vertical rods. A lot of, you know, people just don't even think about graffiti. They'll get the lids and we can clean that off pretty easily, but they don't really attract any graffiti with the way that they're designed. So that's part of the reason why we like it, as well as it being a very robust unit. So a lot of times they can get hit by cars and make it through. So
yeah, there's a reason we've been using this, specing this receptacle for almost a decade now. In even those districts that first deployed these, I first used these in downtown, in a lot of stuff that I did downtown, and knew that they lasted quite a long time. So that's why we have spec'd them here ever since. And candidly, we've had really, really good luck with the receptacles themselves, which is why we keep spec'ing it. I mean, we don't, we go with like a business does. If it works and you like the quality and it holds up, that's what you go with, right? You don't play around with it.
yeah, and we haven't noticed any paint failures on any of these since we put them in. I know the cast aluminum ones that were out there that we're trying to replace year by year and get rid of, those had a lot of issues with the powder coat paint sticking to that cast aluminum, and it was just not conducive for being on a city street like this and going through those winters.
So Dan has proposed buying 5 this year. Nancy, I sensed you were okay with that.
Yes, I think that's good. No, I said I'd meet him halfway and go with 5.
That's right. I like your negotiating. Trent and Al, what do you think of that idea?
Yeah, that's fine.
I guess so. I was hesitating. I said 4. Just 3.
Okay. Trent's noted enthusiasm will be noted in the minutes. So
Noted.
we will go ahead and we'll go ahead and buy 5 of those. Clearly, we'll replace any missing ones first. We'll still do the relocation because we'll want to relocate them anyways. So please know that we'll do that. And then we'll and this we can convey to you via email. We'll let you know the results of the ground truthing, so that Dan and others, if you want to through the business association apply for Great Streets, we'll give you an accurate and updated count. So if it ends up, that we truly have 5 left that we need, you'll know that, and we can identify those locations. So, all right, well, great conversation. And now YouTube and the world will know how long it takes to reach consensus on a trash receptacle on Lake Street. But I say that lightheartedly, but this is the work of the advisory board. I mean, this is why you're here. We can make our, we have professional opinions about this, but you're here to be the sounding board. So I really do appreciate the conversation that we've had. So, and then also, not to miss the point, we will forego the mulching this year, and obviously repurpose those dollars. Is there anything else on 2021 before we move on to 22 in our final minutes here? So, and I'll note that Nancy says computer might die, so Nancy might disappear. So Al, good that you're here. You can't go anywhere because you'd be our quorum if we lose Nancy here. Anything else on 2021? All right. So thank you. So 2022. Again, this was also in the budget packet. We tend to start with the current year's budget as a place, to begin. I then go back and look at the year most recently completed, in this case 2020, to look and say, okay, where did we, over and underspend based on what we budgeted? And also keeping in a context that obviously the corridor is, not only economic challenges related to the pandemic, but obviously all the civil unrest and everything that's happened. So at least in a draft format, subject to today's conversation here, this is a flat budget, with the only addition being the $429, recouping the $429 deficit from year end last year. And this does assume replacement of the mulch in this budget. So again, foregoing it this year, we really likely will need to do it next year. But otherwise, it's essentially a same frequency in terms of services, same service complement and frequency of those services is what this budget reflects. Thoughts on the draft budget?
I like it. It makes sense to me.
Great. Nancy, before we lose you?
Yeah, I'm gonna log in on my phone if I need to. Yeah, you can't, you defer your maintenance, you still gotta pay it, so there's really no way around it, unless, some other district has some sort of magic solution to this, which there probably isn't one. It's just, it is what it is. I'm fine with it.
Well, a lot have found success in investing in GameStop, and they, I'm sorry.
Not anymore.
Dogecoin, sorry.
Fines.
Trent, what do you think?
Fine with me. It's good the way it is now. I think we're good.
Al?
I'm having trouble seeing it, so my screen kind of went out on.
Oh, you know what? I think I stopped sharing. Let me, you have it in an email.
Okay.
Let me share it again here real quick.
Okay.
There we go. Can you see it now, Al?
Yeah, I can.
Very good. Sorry about that. I stopped sharing my my screen. So again, this was in the PDF I sent yesterday, so you do all have this.
Ooh, there we go. Might need to mute somebody here.
Nancy's been twice.
There. Is that better? I'm sorry
There.
about that.
Yeah.
Nope, good.
Seems to be better.
So again, Al, status quo budget on the uses side. The only very slight increase in the service charges to recoup. And I don't think you were on yet. We did end 2020 with a deficit of $429. So we need to recoup
Yeah.
that in next year's service charges. That would be the only
I
increase.
guess looks okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other discussions, would someone like to make a motion to adopt the budget as presented?
So moved.
There's a second?
Second.
Nancy? And I will call the roll. So Al, since you joined us late, when I say your name, you just have to vote yay or nay. But I'll start with Trent Kramer on the budget.
Aye.
Nancy Ford,
Aye.
Dan Kennedy,
Aye.
Al Pewter.
Aye.
Very good. That budget recommendation is adopted. So just like in all of the past years, this budget will go, there'll be a public hearing in September. This budget will be incorporated to a proposed operating plan. That operating plan that includes the budget along with the proposed service charge amount for each property will be mailed to all property owners in advance of that public hearing. That typically happens kind of right around that last week of August, first week of September, depending on the date of the public hearing. There'll be the public hearing, whether it's handled still remotely or in person. We'll just have to see how the summer goes. So know that this will just the normal hearing and notification process will occur going forward. Two other things here, and thank you all for getting your oaths in. So appreciate that and how we were able to get that done. If you haven't done it already, please do complete your ethics training. That's an online session that you can do at your convenience. Just go through and answer some questions. So we do need you to do that. I mentioned this a little while ago. We do have an open seat. Mike Hainan-Smith wanted to sort of step back. I mean, I think he would step back in if desired. But I throw that out there. If anyone knows of any other property owners that might be interested in serving on the board, we'd be happy to just even making an email introduction. We can follow up with them, do a little orientation on what the district is, kind of go through the oath application process and so forth. But we do have, again, that one open seat. With that, unless there's anything else, we can adjourn and we would be just about on time. Anything else? Great. Well, again, thank you all. We will be in touch as we get through meeting with all the boards and getting their budgets adopted. So thinking about that August timeframe, we'll try to canvass for another meeting, and we can check out that utilization study. Some of the things we've kind of addressed because we are going to order the new receptacles, but we'll still endeavor to reconvene the group just to talk about the utilization study and see where we're at with the corridor. And hopefully everybody gets busier. You know, we all get vaccines and people come out and do all the things we like to do on East Lake Street, right? So, well, with that, we can adjourn this meeting at 3:27. I'll say thank you to everyone, and please know that we're all available in between meetings if anything pops up. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.
Bye.
Same.
Bye-bye.